The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, executive editor of the American Prospect, David Dayen. On what the Great Resignation will mean for labor power in this country and more. Also on the program today, the Department of Justice sues Texas for a violation of the Voting Rights Act based upon their new congressional redistricting. Meanwhile, Mark Meadows reverses, says he will not cooperate with the January 6th Commission. This coming the day after senior National Guard official, former, said that 2 of the Army chiefs lied about what they did on that day.
Wonder if one's the Flynn brother.
It is. Joe Biden to talk with Vladimir Putin today as Russia amasses troops on the Ukrainian border. Devin Nunes out to pasture. Leaves Congress for Trump for greener grass. Trump's media company. I just did that right in the moment. Meanwhile, Trump's media company deal investigated by the SEC, of course. Senate Democrats way pushing Joe Manchin on Build Back Better. Oh my gosh.
How dare
Well,
they?
how dare they? I've never. Why? It's getting a little peaked in here. Meanwhile, as the debt ceiling vote is teed up, new report, female doctors make $2 million less than their male counterparts, and that disparity starts on day 1. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Here with me, Emma Vigeland. Hello, Emma.
Hello, Sam.
Got a couple of things. First off, obviously today, Pearl Harbor Day. Over 2,400 U.S. military personnel died on that day when the Japanese Navy, and I don't know if it was its Air Force, maybe it's Air Force, but they came via, obviously, bombed Pearl Harbor, which basically started World War II for us in this country. There's been, I don't know, where are we on the question as to whether FDR knew that there was an imminent attack?
Oh, I've never really investigated that question that thoroughly, to be honest, because, I don't know, it seemed like we looked, whatever it was, we used it as a reason to go into World War II.
We did indeed. It is also the day that my sister, Betsy, was born. So happy birthday to Betsy. Pearl Harbor Day. But she shares that birthday with Noam Chomsky.
Oh.
Happy birthday to Noam Chomsky.
Wow.
Also born on Pearl Harbor Day. So congratulations.
A lot of good birthdays this time of year.
Good birthdays. So happy birthday, Betsy, and happy birthday, Noam Chomsky.
Yes.
Reminder. We are now just about 5 weeks out from the big live show
On
January 16th in Boston, Massachusetts. And you can be a part of it. head over to majoritylive.com or majorityreportlive.com. Sign up, check it out. We're going to have a lot of fun there. We're already starting to do stuff to prepare for that show. Obviously, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight tweets that I have done, that I have tweeted out.
Right.
That's going to be the show.
Yes.
That apparently works for some people.
Just Twitter beef,
report,
I think.
right?
Yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to actually, but it's all going to be tweets that I've tweeted.
Yeah,
So
it's like a
I'm
tweetception.
going to point back and go like, look at what I tweeted when that person tweeted that.
But
And then read it out word for word.
I'm going to read it out word for word because some of you might not be able to read, and so and as you can see, I tweeted that, and then I tweeted that. That's what I'm doing.
you now need to screenshot an image of you pointing back.
I'm going to screenshot me
tweet it
pointing
out.
to my tweet. With the tweet. Yeah, it's
We
gonna be
need
like
it.
that.
We need a tweet within the tweet within the tweet within the show.
Indeed. Majority Live. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Also, just a reminder, we're relying on you to tell us what our best of were of the year. So send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com if there was a particular interview that you thought was worthy of a best of. Oh, that Andreas Malm interview that we ran, apparently that got... that book got him landed on like some type of terror. Like he was like they investigated the New Yorker for having him on. Apparently they didn't investigate us, or maybe they did. I don't know.
Wow.
But I don't know if that's best of. You're going to have to decide, ladies and gentlemen. That's the way it works around here. We can't be expected to do that type of work. I'm too busy pointing out my tweets.
Right. That's the.
I want to highlight my tweets.
Yeah, that's the most important part.
Folks, we got a Saki bomb for you.
Oh yeah, Queen. Yes, slay.
There's really only, from the very beginning of this pandemic, there was really only 2 or 3 things that you could do to mitigate the pandemic. I mean, I don't know. There's probably a place or two around the globe that has been untouched, but for the most part, everywhere has been touched by this. Certainly, a country like the United States was not going to escape. But we could have done a lot better. We could have saved probably hundreds of thousands of lives. Not to mention the disposition of the last administration towards COVID and it becoming essentially some type of like cultural signifier for 40% of the country to pretend like it didn't exist. Obviously, social distancing and masking when appropriate, and then obviously the development of the vaccine, which we have. But the other major thing would have been to test and trace. Now, at this point, like tracing, it's still done. My son had to stay out of school because he was in close contact with somebody. Fortunately, did not get it, but it's the safest thing to do because you don't know. But testing is huge. And we have a crappy regime in this country for testing. Here is Jen Psaki attempting to, pretend like that's not the case.
Look at what we've done over the course of time. We've quadrupled the size of our testing plan. We've cut the cost significantly over the past few months. And this effort to push to ensure insurers you're able to get your tests refunded means 150 million Americans will be able to get free tests.
Complicated though. Why not just make them free and give them out and have them available everywhere?
Should we just send one to every American?
Maybe.
Then what happens if every American has one test? How much does that cost? And then what happens after that?
All I know is that other countries seem to be making them available in greater quantities for less money.
Well, I think we share the same objective, which is to make them less expensive and more accessible, right? Every country is going to do that differently. And I was just noting that, again, our tests go through the FDA approval process. That's not the
that was an NPR reporter, by the way. This wasn't like the Majority Report correspondent asking her this question. It's that common sense because it's that prevalent. In the UK, you can get a bunch of free tests.
You can order 7 tests a day.
Yeah, you can walk into any store and grab free tests.
I don't think that we should be sending tests out to every American one-off. But I do think you should be able to get a test on demand, essentially, either by in the mail or actually just sort of like, I don't know, go online and I don't know, maybe if there was only some type of federal worker who was literally visiting your home every day, like somebody like who had the ability to deliver something every day, so that maybe you could go online and just go like, need a test, right. Bingo. And
but how much would that cost, Sam?
I mean, can you imagine? I mean, look, it would cost something. But in terms of all the other expense associated with COVID, it just seems like the most obvious thing to do. And yes, we do have FDA approval, but am I the only person who saw that story that Trump had an FDA crony in there and they only approved 2 tests, which from a company that he worked for?
Yeah.
He was certain those were the safest. Gotta know it. Is it really the case the U.S. government couldn't develop the test and then basically just say with the defense authorization, say like, you're going to produce these tests?
No, because when the reporter followed up, she pivoted and tried to make it about like, well, initially, even in the response there, she was talking about how much the United States has made gains, but relative to other countries, that's not the case because we have a convoluted for-profit system where instead of just making these tests free and investing the money necessary into doing so, which the Biden administration could do easily, you have to buy a test, fill out a form for your $14 test, and then get a rebate maybe like in a few weeks.
And we know like rebates exist because most people don't avail
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right. It creates a barrier to entry. People will forget about it. They won't participate. And then, okay, you're able to make a profit on it. That's what she's trying to protect there. So
creating a barrier to entry to testing, not the best of strategies. Not the best of strategies.
You want people to be able to have as many tests as possible waste tests. So when she talks about like, oh, what are we just going to send every American a test? I don't know. It's not insane. You want as many wasted tests as possible because that means that people are taking it seriously and testing themselves and not infecting other people.
In fact, it's probably a good thing to do as a one-off to introduce the idea that there are tests that you can take. They're super easy. In fact, we sent you one. It's free. And if you need more, here's what you do. You go to USPS.gov, /send me a test, and boom. I mean, at one point, the U.S. government was going to send everybody through their mail person
a mask. Well, they should have done that too, but that was under the Trump administration. Now the Biden administration, they're supposed to be like sake bombs everywhere, right? Like the queen slaying and upholding the boundaries of our for-profit healthcare system. We love you.
I mean, just to be clear, I mean, she's just a spokesperson for the administration.
No, but
the failure of the administration to deal with this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, but she shows the contempt is indicative of their approach to this.
Yep.
She was annoyed by that question, and like the lack of imagination is
fatal.
It's fatal and also profitable for certain segments. And then like, that's why she gets her back up.
It's sort of amazing too, that you would imagine at this point, the Biden administration would be very, very worried about assuming this thing's wrapping up. Right. I mean, that seems to me to be understandable that certainly I certainly felt that way last June. I was like, by September, I don't even know. I said this all. I was like, I'm not even sure, maybe late into September. I have a feeling you'll take your mask off by October. And then Delta rolls around. So it's just, I don't know. It seems like there's this hope that it's going to go away and it would be silly to do the test thing right now. But maybe it's a good idea to sort of set up a system.
They do it in other states in this country. I believe like there are some states in the United States, maybe in New England, where they have free tests. So it's not crazy.
Folks, today's program sponsored by, was somebody called in the other day, or I am, about saying that that if you're going to promote the things like solar, you should have solar at your house. And I tend to agree. I mean,
Again, it's a little hard because we live in
a little bit
Brooklyn.
different.
I rent.
I mean,
but maybe
hook up my TV to it. But the point is, solar's out there. A lot of times, these things seem like they are too complicated. You don't know how to go about it. There's a lot of, particularly early on, there was a lot of like solar enterprises that could be a little bit predatory. You rent this stuff and you lease it back and blah, blah, blah. Well, enter mysolarnerd.com. Mysolarnerd.com, a guy named Danny was was working for one of these solar companies, didn't like what he saw, became a solar consultant. He's a fan, longtime listener of the program. And here's the thing. If you're a homeowner, you may have considered solar, but you didn't know where to start. That's where mysolarnerd.com comes in. A lot of homeowners aren't aware of the solar options that are available to them. They're not aware that maybe they could retrofit their house with no money down. And most homeowners that switch over to solar see significant savings starting in their first year. And this is possible largely because of the solar investor tax credit, which is not going to be here forever. It got extended through the COVID stuff until next year. 26% tax credit. And it's going to drop to 22% the year after. But My Solar Nerd's mission is simple. It helps you find the best solar program for your house and then to make the transition as easy and smooth as possible. This is what they do. They analyze your usage. They find the best equipment for your specific needs. They determine the incentives and financing you may qualify for. Some states there's more incentives. Some places there's better programs to finance. And then he project manages the process between you and the installers, obtain the permits, speaks the language, et cetera, et cetera. Like I say, some of those tax credits and incentives are sunsetting. Maybe they are in your specific state. Some markets that are prone to power outages may qualify for off-grid backup solutions like battery type of stuff, and others. Majority Report listeners are going to get a $200 gift card upon installation of their solar system. Go to mysolarnerd.com, fill out the inquiry form now. Make sure you select the Majority Report listener for how you heard about mysolarnerd.com so that you get that $200 gift card upon installation. But check it out. You may be wondering what solar could mean for you. mysolarnerd.com. All right. Do we have David? Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the Zoom, the executive editor of the American Prospect, sort of frozen in our minds and in our vision.
Hearts.
There he is. David Dayen. David, how are you? David? David. We'll take a quick break and see if we can't get his video, his audio sorted out.
How are you, Sam?
Oh, there he is. Oh, David, are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can, and I feel like I'm in a situation where I'm being held hostage by Frontier Communications, which is my internet service provider, at least for the next 48 hours until I finally do away with them once and for all.
Oh, you're switching.
Oh, good for you. It's well overdue, though, I got to tell you, David. Or is this just a new situation where you get
a new frontier,
different?
if you may, if
Yeah.
you will, right?
Yeah.
What can I tell you? We're,
all right.
We're making it happen.
All right. I'm glad to hear it. That's very exciting.
The world knows now, which is great.
We've been waiting, frankly. It's been a source of some consternation around here.
But will the landline be disappearing as well, David? That's the biggest question.
Oh, the landline's out of there.
Oh,
landline's gone.
You don't need that.
Wow.
All right. So, David,
It's not necessary.
There's a couple of pieces that you've written that I want to talk to you about. Let's start with what was the cover piece for the American Prospect this past month, which is about the Great Resignation. I've seen, there's been like different types of reporting around this. People leaving the workforce. Want to go through the reasons, and also people starting their own businesses. Give us sort of some of the top line numbers associated with what we're watching, and go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, in September, which is the latest number we have on quits, 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs, and this was a record. And previously, the record was the month before, which was in August. It's about 3% of the American workforce in both of those months quitting their jobs. The total American workforce, 3% quit their jobs. And if you look at surveys on people thinking about quitting their jobs in the future, the numbers are even higher. The Society for Human Resource Management has, interestingly, for months been writing these stories like flashing red bulbs saying everybody is about to quit their jobs. And the survey that jumped out at me is one that they ran in July, which said that 41% of U.S. workers are either actively searching for a new job or planning to do so in the next few months.
Wow.
So these are astronomical numbers.
Well, so just so that we have some perspective, like, so do you have a sense of, like, I don't know, in September of 2019, let's say, like how many people, do you have a sense of how many people quit their job in like a normal month, as it were, pre-pandemic?
Well, as I said, it's a record high.
Right.
To see 4 million is a record high. The normal numbers are not that low. I mean, a year earlier, it was around 3 million. But the numbers have been steadily rising. And the difference between 4.5 million and 3 million is actually quite significant. I believe it's almost 50%. Close to 50%. So we it's a really significant rise. It's a phenomenon for a reason that we have not seen this, and we especially don't expect to see it coming out of a recession, right? I mean, coming out of a recession, people crave sort of job security if they're able to get it. Obviously, we've had a very good recovery from a labor market perspective. It's a tight labor market. You do expect more quits as people have the ability to find other jobs that pay other wages. But in talking to people about this, talking to experts about this, it seems like there's more going on than just people seeking higher wages.
And this doesn't include the sort of early retirements that we had too, does it? I mean, because that was also a big factor over the course of the past year or so.
Yeah, there have been about 1 million more, something like 1 million more retirements than we would have expected from an actuarial standpoint over the past year. But when you're talking about 4.5 million people on an ongoing basis quitting their jobs, retirements that's only going to get you so far. It's all part of a piece. There are a lot of reasons that we're seeing what is, sort of informally known as the Great Resignation, and retirements is one of them. Lower immigration levels is one of them because that creates a tighter labor market. Increases in business formation is actually a tremendous jolt of people forming their own businesses at this time. Also, not something we saw, especially out of the last recession, not something you expect when there's some labor market insecurity. You don't expect people to just, throw up their hands and start their own businesses. All of these things contribute. And then there are these sort of exogenous aspects that are really related to the pandemic, things like, being afraid to come into work and not having childcare to take care of your kids. There are a whole bunch of factors. But in this story, in talking to people, what I found is that I kept coming back to a different reason for why so many people are quitting their jobs.
I want to get to that reason in a second. Just one more sort of like 30,000 foot question. Do we have a sense of how these resignations, these quits, are distributed through the income levels? Are we talking?
There's a disproportionate number of quits happening in the low wage workforce. It's not that all of them are happening at that level. I personally talk to people from low wage workers on up to the executive boardroom who have quit their jobs. But if you look at the percentage of jobs in each particular bucket, more people are quitting on a proportional basis in the low wage workforce.
All right, one more question in that regard, because one would imagine there would be more economic anxiety amongst those low wage workers, but for like COVID relief. I mean, how much of that is because we were told, right, that as soon as we cut off unemployment benefits, which depending on what state you're in, happened as early as August, I guess. But certainly by the federal supplements and extensions and et cetera, was ended in September, early September. You know, we're 2.5 months out from there, and the average American, you know, at least prior to now, didn't have $400 of cash, or $1,000 worth of cash to last them. Do we have a sense of what that dynamic is?
I mean, it's hard to completely say because we only have quit rates through September. So that corresponds, there's a bit of a lag there. But I think what we can say is that there was sort of this pop-up safety net that was created during the pandemic. It added a lot of economic security to people on the low end of the scale. And that combined with the current labor market dynamic where wages are rising really rapidly in the low wage sector. And when we talk about quits, that doesn't say anything as to whether those people are quitting to go into business, quitting to go to college, quitting to go to another job.
Right.
And we have to assume that a lot of those people are actually quitting to go to another job. And that's evidenced by the fact that wages have risen as much as 12% in the low wage sector over the last few months. And so it's hard to disaggregate all these numbers. And there are a lot of ways that you could, move around the data and point to, okay, that's the reason, or that's the reason. But I really, really think after talking to people that there's more of an emotional reason for why this is happening right now.
And I was just going to say, leading into that, my understanding is that after talking to people, you're convinced that this is just like we're like living in like the 1300s.
Well, there is an aspect of that. To bring it a little bit closer to the present day, I would point to the fact that the two largest years for labor unrest, formal labor unrest, this was when we actually had robust unions in the United States, were 1919 and 1946. It was right after World War I and right after World War II, when people were coming back from the front, hailed as heroes, and then put into decidedly unheroic jobs and finding themselves very unfulfilled by that. And I believe that there's a similar dynamic going on now. People were called essential workers. They were called heroes for being on the front lines during the pandemic. And they realized that their jobs were getting worse and worse and worse. And that all of this rhetoric around essential workers and heroism was just that. It was empty words. And they sought out significantly more fulfillment just on not just on wages and not just on better workplaces, but on basic dignity and respect. And that led to this very courageous moment that we're seeing, where people are simply saying, "I've had enough. I'm not going to continue. This pandemic forced a new reckoning with me about how I want to spend my time." Work is one of the largest time blocks of the day outside of sleeping, and it requires for a certain subset of people that are engaged in this, requires just a much stronger sense of fulfillment, and they're not going to be put in the situation that they were in, even prior to the pandemic. Now, obviously having a better safety net, having some money in the bank obviously helps with that. But I feel like the pandemic was this sort of mass traumatic event that created a new mode of thinking in people. I talked to psychologists about this who study the labor market. I just feel like in talking to people, that's the impression I got.
So, I mean, I know that there were all of this high number of walkouts in non-union workplaces during the pandemic, which I'm curious to hear you expand upon a little bit. But I just wonder too, I mean, now if there's more money in the bank due to checks being sent out and people are having this reckoning with work, and they're in non-union jobs where they feel that the gig economy is going to replace a lot of what is done, or that's what their employers are kind of insinuating. Are there people who, because the protections are already so threadbare at these traditional wage jobs, are like, I might as well just drive for Uber or something like that, and then I'd be able to at least protect myself and work on my own terms?
Well, I mean, we're seeing walkouts among those gig jobs as well. A famous one at DoorDash just recently, and as well as some others. I'm not sure that the salvation there is necessarily these gig economy jobs, which, certainly if you talk to gig economy CEOs, that's what they think is that they stand to gain from this great reserve army of the unemployed. I just think that there is such a thing as a breaking point. We didn't know for many years in the United States, which is an anomaly, let's say, on the level of low wage work. If you go to other countries, they do not have this kind of proportion of low wage workers in their workforce. Up to a quarter of the U.S. workforce is in low wage jobs of this nature. It's the highest percentage in the developed world. One thing that I thought was an interesting phenomenon, which I dug out, was that about 11.5 million people in America work for companies that are owned by private equity firms who have a decided motivation to squeeze their own workers in order to extract profits from the business. So that I think has just built up this reckoning. The one perfect example is this lady who I talked to from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. She was a dog groomer at PetSmart and talked about her job and how PetSmart demanded them to work on animals that should not have been brought into these kinds of places to be groomed, that could be harmed by it, could be killed, that could die from stress. And they were told, just, run through the treadmill. She told me that when she would go to work, she would hope that she would get in a car accident so she wouldn't have to go to the job. And this isn't a foundry, right? This isn't like the jungle in Upton Sinclair. This is a dog groomer, right? This is what we've done to largely banal kind of low wage jobs, that we've created these living nightmares for people. And I think the pandemic took it one step too far. A, it made these jobs worse. B, The people who are already going through this stress and trauma and depression now were rethinking their relationship to work, and it provided this mix to create people. And I would add social media created another aspect of this that created, in a nation where about only 6% or 7% of the U.S. workforce is unionized, to have kind of this collective response, like Reddit's like anti-work and TikTok, video quit your job hashtags and things like that, created this collective response to what is a very individual action of quitting your job. And it added a coherence to this, like people thinking they were not alone because there were other people out there who were broadcasting their resignations.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think there's also, it's so rare that there is an experience, particularly the lockdown, but just the pandemic it's very rare that everyone is experiencing more or less the same thing. Not necessarily experiencing it in the same way because of where they are, but there is a quality of a pandemic that is sort of a great equalizer, right? Like, I mean, some people who are, and I don't want to go too far with that notion because obviously people are differently, not as are differently situated. But
there's a really interesting paper that I touch on in there that you should probably find the people who wrote this paper and talk to them for even in more detail. But it was from the National Bureau of Economic Research, and it looked at 19 pandemics stretching all the way back to the 1300s. And we can talk about the Black Death and the similarities between labor in that age and labor today. But if you look at this paper, it looked at 700 years of pandemics. And it found consistently in a demonstrable way that real wages always go up and the return on capital always goes down, which happens in pandemics, but not necessarily in like wars or other things like that. Now, we're not seeing that yet. We're seeing wages go up, but we are also seeing real profits skyrocket. And a lot of that has to do with the concentration of our economic system and monopolization and things like that. But pandemics historically are a leveler for inequality, and some of that, I believe, is psychological. That once you have these kinds of events, that people say we need more protection, we need more pay, we need a better sense of security, and usually that's what happens.
It is weird in that regard because a friend of mine said to me some time ago, she was like, the thing with this is you've been through this sort of like traumatic experience and you expect some type of like reward when you get to the other side. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's just like, maybe a B-. Like you show up, or maybe like it's a C. Like you show up and it's just like, oh, wait a second. I haven't gotten anything out of.
I talked to a person who was a beer distributor who told me he worked constantly through the pandemic and all he got was a T-shirt, right? Like saying that he was a hero for working the pandemic. A lot of the hazard pay that was put out in 2020, which was pretty meager to begin with, most of that was taken away by 2021. There hasn't been that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There hasn't been any kind of reward. And it's left people thinking, well, why am I risking my life in order to make sure that somebody gets their meatloaf platter or to make sure that someone gets their drink on a plane? Like, why am I doing this? It's just very basic kind of elemental kind of stuff. And that's what's driving this, in my view.
Let's talk about the Black Plague so that we can put into context my joke about the 1340s or 1350s I think I made that only you...
I didn't see that connection coming, I will say.
No, this is, I mean, that's the... and it is interesting to me that we don't see something analogous in the context of, let's say, following a war, although there's no physical destruction and there's no, I mean, there's aspects of our society and our lives that have been sort of blown apart, but all the structures, like literally the physical structures, are all still there. Everything is still, the infrastructure is exactly the same. The only difference is that everything else has sort of been blown up. And that's what's, I guess that's why you compare it to pandemics as opposed to other sort of shared traumas, I guess, as it were.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Black Death in Europe wiped out close to half the population in highly effective areas. And so you had a literal labor shortage. I mean, this is different than the sort of talk of a labor shortage that we have in the United States right now. You literally did not have enough people to work the land. And serfs and peasants who had no real formal or even informal power suddenly had the ability to be prized because they were necessary in order for lords and various fiefdoms to keep going. And so they could find new opportunities. They could go from one lord to another and seek a better conditions or actual cash wages, which they didn't get, or lower rent on the homes that they would live on the facility. So there was this was like an early moment of labor mobility that we didn't see before. And what's interesting to me is what the reaction was. So in England, for example, the very first labor law comes directly out of the Black Death. It's called the Ordinance of Laborers. It happened in 1349. And it set wage controls. So there was a wage ceiling where you weren't allowed to pay for anyone.
We should be clear in terms of like this as a labor law. This is really sort of like, this is not, I think in common parlance, when we think, labor law, these are laws to protect labor. No, this is the opposite. I mean, on some level, Taft-Hartley.
Taft-Hartley is a labor law, right? I mean, so yes. In the spirit of that, it's a labor law.
Right.
Yeah. So, but they said everyone under the age of 60 had to work. If you found someone who was not in a bounded contract, who was unpledged to a particular lord, you could say, okay, now you have to work for me for a year at the prevailing wage. And you would sort of bring them into service. And they restricted mobility. Serfs could not depart to, seek a better deal. And no employer could hire what was called excess workers, so that everybody would get, their own allotment of serfs, essentially. Now, this sounds like a very restrictive law, and it was. But what we know, and actually the worst thing maybe was that it outlawed beggars, who usually got a lot of their alms at funerals. They said under penalty of imprisonment, no one should give alms to the poor. That was part of the labor law here. And it sounds, very restrictive, very much to keep the social order, which is what it really was for. But it was also a failure, which is what's so interesting about this, that employers would sort of mock up their books and then pay people a little more on the side to retain workers. Landowners would say, well, we won't say it officially to anyone, but we'll pay you more. Employers within the cities would kind of compete for workers with employers within the countryside, like in the city of London. There were all kinds of cases where people would, there were cases on the books where people were violating this law repeatedly, and so what it shows is that you can write these laws and you can come up with these ideas. And by the way, currently in this current context, laws have been written to force people back to work, right? I mean, not exactly the same, maybe not as restrictive as the statute of laborers of 1349, but there have been laws, for example, cutting off enhanced unemployment benefits in the summer in 25 states, which was designed explicitly to put people back to work. It said, people were living off the dole, and if they got cut off, they would go back to work. This has caused no change in the labor force in those 25 states. We have kind of a natural experiment between the states that cut unemployment early and the states that kept it on. There was no difference in employment there. And we saw people, that was not a sufficient reason to get people to force people back onto the job. And so that parallel, I think, is really, really interesting.
I would imagine you could also include, to some extent, like the resumption of student debt payments, the end of the eviction moratorium, and frankly, we're seeing it in the context of the austerity that guys like Manchin, and I imagine, if they were to be honest, maybe it would be Warner and a couple others at least in the Democratic caucus.
We should also say we're seeing it in the context of what remains in Build Back Better, which is
that's what I'm saying. Yes, they've cut back on a lot of those support mechanisms.
Universal pre-K, though, is a provision that would let people go back to work. And it's a good provision, but it also means you're a parent, your kid can be taken care of while you re-enter the workforce.
Right. But here's my question relative to, 1350, as it were, 1349. We're seeing, this inflation, which I think you... certainly, I would argue, is a function of a combination of logistics and a combination of concentrated, of market concentration and some gouging on some level. All of those things. At one point, the logistics are going to get worked out. The ability to gouge and the concentration will still be there, but it seems to me that those forces are going to recede a little bit. I would imagine that the reason why you passed that law in 1350 is in part so that you have established certain standards, and to the extent that people are sort of cheating and paying more to their labor, it's not as durable of an increase. Do you think the wage increase, if we're talking about low wage workers getting a 12% bump, and others across the economy, there's upward pressure on wages. Do you think that A, that increase is going to be durable, and B, the dynamic is also going to increase the value of that increase? In other words, prices are going to recede. We're seeing it already with gas, right? Gas has started on a trajectory down. And so that 12% goes even further than it did a month ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of whether the Great Resignation, which I guess in this piece I call the Great Escape, the escape from low wage work, whether or not that's going to be sustained, I do think that you're going to need some I guess I would call it organized discontent rather than individual and inchoate discontent, until we get a stronger union movement in this country. It's hard to see exactly how this all can be sustained. And yet, what I would say is that it's one thing to change conditions, and it's another to change a mindset. And I really do think that a mindset has changed in the American workforce, particularly in the low wage workforce, where they're searching for not just searching for meaning, because I mean it's going to be hard to find meaning in a McDonald's, right? But searching for not for respect, for the ability to not be abused consistently on a daily basis in a way that's terrorizing and in a way that really is harmful to one's psyche. And this is what people decided they had put up with enough. And so businesses that actually recognize that and speak to that and are able to retain workers, which is a savings of sorts because you don't have to retrain people, are going to figure out a way to make that better for people. And businesses that don't are going to have a real tough time finding people to work these jobs for them. And I think, early on in the pandemic, certainly among my colleagues at the Prospect, we were thinking about, well, how can this, the pandemic exposed all these sort of fault lines in the U.S. economy, and what is going to be sustainable? What is going to be different about the country after this all ends? Is it going to be we're all going to be in remote work, or is it going to be that we all realize the error of our ways and not having a safety net, and this one performed so well that we popped up in the pandemic that we're going to sustain it? And I don't think it's any of that. But I do think that this kind of final renouncement, if as it were, of the brutality of low wage work in America, that could be the sustaining and enduring moment coming out of the pandemic.
Hope springs eternal, and I should also say that both Matt and Bradley walked out of the office during this this interview. We all right. Well, let's
and for good reason. Let me just say, given your treatment.
That's right.
I have to speak in solidarity with them.
I mean,
surprised Emma's still here. She's actually a hologram that just had just in case.
Well, I mean, I'm swimming in all that Comcast money.
That's
so
true.
I'm in a different position.
Well, let's. I want to just touch on before we go another piece you wrote about Lina Khan because this. Has implications to what is driving up prices and also what is the relationship between capital and labor in this country, and that is market concentration. And Lina Khan, you have written, has cashed in her chips. Basically, I think everybody sort of knew. That's why there was like a worry about her being appointed to the FTC. Everybody sort of knew that this was, she was a sort of a trust buster, as it were, or anti-monopolizer, I guess. But tell us the implications of this FTC suit. What it is basically stopping a merger, I guess, or an acquisition.
Yeah. Well, the Federal Trade Commission filed a suit to stop a merger between NVIDIA, which is a semiconductor supplier. You probably know them if you're a gamer because they make graphics cards for gaming consoles and things like that. But they also do a lot of other computer chip supply operations. And then there's a firm called ARM, which is a designer of chips that are used in a whole array of products, cell phones, autos, data centers, things like that. And so they were attempting to merge. It's a huge deal, between $40 and $75 billion is the estimate. And the FTC sued to block that merger. And there are two things that are interesting about it. One is that this isn't a merger between competitors. It's a merger that is known as a vertical merger. It's a merger between one part of the chain and another part of the chain. ARM does the design for chips, and NVIDIA then creates them and supplies them. They don't manufacture them because that's all done in like one company in Taiwan. But if you control the design of a chip and you control the supplier of a semiconductor chip, then and the design firm is the firm that competing suppliers have to use to create their own products, you see the problem there, right? You can dominate the market, you can undermine your rivals, you can restrict this design element from this design company from working with rivals that might create better products than you. And with ARM being one of the dominant design firms for semiconductors, this would restrict competition in a major way.
All right. So just to be clear, so ARM has a bunch of different clients theoretically, right? And one of their clients is NVIDIA. This is a B2B business. And NVIDIA says, we want our chip to do X, Y, or Z. ARM designs it. NVIDIA then goes to a factory where they literally make it. And the factory is a third entity that apparently is the only entity that does this.
A major, mostly only. I shouldn't say only, but yes.
Which is its own problem, we should say. And I think we're seeing that right now with the cars, computers and whatnot. And so this is almost, for just like use an analogy, it's sort of like why we don't necessarily want Verizon to be in the content business, as it were, if there was a limited amount of content providers, because it allows them to sort of like basically controlling this other, to dictate to their rivals, what they have access to in terms of design and to know their secrets and all of that.
I mean, it's interesting that you chose Verizon and not Comcast. I didn't take you for a company man, but
doesn't any type of stuff like that at all.
But anyway, I mean, that's the problem. So one thing is, in recent years, the antitrust agencies have not really done a whole lot of work on vertical mergers. They have occasionally blocked mergers between rivals that would create lower competition within a particular market. They have not done a lot of this on vertical combination. And it's notable that the vote to go forward with this lawsuit was bipartisan. It was 4-0. There are now 4 members of the FTC. We're waiting on a 5th to be confirmed, but it was a 4-0 vote. And so it shows bipartisan interest in newly reinvigorating vertical merger enforcement. So that's number one. And the second thing is that there's a broader context to semiconductors, right? I mean, you just mentioned that we have this, one of the main drivers of inflation right now is the fact that there's this semiconductor shortage, and that creates problems for building cars and building electronics. And it's raised the cost, particularly in the auto market, quite significantly. And so you can deal with that by saying, oh, we're going to reshore everything. And we're going to build factories. I mean, this would take place over years, but we're going to build new factories, and we're create a lot new places, a lot of redundancy in this supply chain, and we're going to fix this problem. But if you have the synthetic bottlenecks created by concentration and exclusionary conduct, then all of the new building in the world is not going to totally work out for you. So this is complementary to an industrial policy. This is complementary to creating the conditions so that we aren't beholden to one company in China, or one company in Taiwan, I should say, for building the world's semiconductor chips.
2 points. One, I should say, full disclosure, we are no longer on Peacock and not involved in Comcast in any way. Of course, I still swimming in their cash to never criticize them. I should make that.
Well, yeah, they paid up front.
That's right. It was a lifetime membership. They just they went to jointhemajority.report.com.
I don't know what I'm going to watch nightly if I'm not going to.
Well,
watch the Majority Report on Peacock.
There's a good.
What do you expect me to do with my time?
There's a good Beatles documentary on Disney Plus, but they've got their problems too, Disney. Anyways, but the other thing, like, do you think the fact that it was? I was struck by the fact that it was a bipartisan vote. Does having someone like Lina Khan, and I don't want to sort of overstate this, but I mean, this is the relevance of like personnel in this situation where, I feel like I could walk up to 1,000 people on the street and say, Lina Khan, and they would just look at me like, like, I don't, could you get out of my way, buddy?
Excuse you.
Right.
Exactly. But having Lina Khan there communicating with people who are at least somewhat interested in the idea. Theoretically, if you're on the Federal Trade Commission, you must have some relationship to this topic, right? And some interest in this. Have someone in there who is so well versed and so specific in their perspective on this and persuasive. Like, is that how you get to a 4-0 vote? Is that how you I mean, how much of a difference does it make to have people like Lina Khan in these positions? For say, like, you know, maybe overseeing like the quality of internet, let's say.
He's speechless.
Can you hear me, David?
Start crying talking about Lina.
A lot, because the way that I got nothing. Yeah, I can. Okay. Let me see.
Yep, we just lost you again.
Boop. Boop.
Apparently,
say this: the way that this might have normally gone down. We're going to fix this. All right. Are we good?
Yeah, you're good.
The way this would have maybe gone down in a previous regime is it wouldn't have come up for a vote, right? Like, that's how you stop even broad bipartisan visions. Is the person at the top just says, we're not going to make this priority. We're going to use our prosecutorial discretion and move us, just move along.
Well, that may be a sufficient answer.
In this case, picking her spots, knowing that, okay, there's going.
David, maybe try and lose the video upload for just as we wind up. Just cut your video.
All right.
Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen.
How's that? Better?
Oh, wait, try better.
No, not better at all.
Everyone just read. We should.
Well, folks, this is a great way to remind you that you should head over to the American Prospect, prospect.org. David Dayen.
All right.
Oh, there he is. He's back again. He's in and out.
I mean, I think this is doomed.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you so much for your time today. Good way to pitch you going over to the Prospect. If you subscribe to one publication, for my money, it would be the American Prospect. Yeah. This great writing, really reporting on stuff that you really cannot find anywhere else. I mean, there's other. I obviously. I'm a big fan of The Intercept and The Daily Poster, also very good places.
Yeah, I was going to name those. I would just say on those ones, like, it's easy, like, all this commentary stuff, if you enjoy commentary on YouTube or podcasts, it wouldn't be possible without people like David Dayen.
Right. And to be clear, this is they're reporting on things that just don't get the coverage in other avenues. And it's often, very policy oriented. And it's it really is a great publication. He's done a great job. I mean,
and if you like this show, I mean, you're going to like what they have to say at the American Prospect.
Without a doubt.
Right.
Without a doubt. And you want to learn about, how things work. This is a great place to do it.
The Dayen's piece on Lina Khan is really good, and like feels good to feel happy about one part of the Biden administration right now.
Right. And this is, it's also important to understand that regardless of what you think about Joe Biden as a person, our politics are set up in such a way that all the focus is on that individual that you're electing. But the reality is that you're not electing a person. You're electing a set of relationships, and it's 360 degrees. there very well may be 180 degrees of those relationships that are identical in many respects to a Republican administration. Certainly when it comes to, some elements of, let's say, financialization and the relationship with pharmaceuticals and
The
maybe,
Pentagon.
certainly without a doubt, the defense, military industrial complex. But there's another 180 degrees, and I'm just picking these numbers at random, where there's a bunch of other people who get in there. And those people pick other people, and they push other people. And so you get people like Lina Khan as an example. We're going to see it in the context of the FCC. We're going to see it in the context of judges. We're going to see it in context of, there's a lot of, sometimes it misfires. I think like Merrick Garland, crappy pick for the DOJ. But if you look at what's happening in terms of antitrust within the DOJ, a lot of good people. So understand, when you elect a president, you are not just electing a president. You are opening the door for subsidiary people there. Now, some people come in, and I don't know if could fully expect who those Joe Biden people would be and the subsidiary people would be. But broadly speaking, you're going to have a better shot at getting a Lina Khan with the Joe Biden administration than you would with a Donald Trump administration.
Yeah, what do we have, like Ajit Pai and
right.
guys like that?
Exactly. There was none of this. And, we already talked about the FDA. The head of the FDA sat on a lot of applications for low-cost testing.
Squeeze a few bucks out of it.
With just a coincidental had a relationship with the tests that were approved. So, there's broad implications here. And if you want to understand that, you got to read about it. And also, got to get better internet. Give me a break.
Well, he is getting better internet.
It's a little late in the day, it seems to me. We've had this problem before.
Even I got around to it after like 6 months of the pandemic.
Exactly.
I know.
What are you doing? Waiting for COVID 2024?
Who would be slow to make changes that they want to do?
Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You always talk about how you take forever to do things.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So you could, you have a brother in arms here.
I could change. I changed to FiOS. Even it was able to change. When that FiOS was available in my building, I was like the first guy.
Yeah.
I greeted the guys digging it out on the front. They were a little bit put off.
You just want to shake their hand.
I honestly, I was trying to hug them, but COVID. Folks, you can support the show by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Head over there right now. Don't forget, we got a live show January 16th in Boston, the big live show. Check it out. We got Larry Murphy. We got John Benjamin. Oh, also, I forgot to tell the merch. You didn't tell me, Bradley. We now have a pullover hooded sweatshirt in gray and red. It is a limited time only. I'm being informed by my sister. It's $50. It is all union made in the U.S. We make nothing on the sweatshirts. It's good.
I didn't know if you were going to say that on air.
I'm trying to cement my business bona fides.
like it's just a complete, there's no markup.
It's a loss leader is what we call. Now, we make all the monies on the carpenter pencils. That's where we make up all the cash.
You want to be the biggest items to be the loss leaders.
That's right. The pullover sweatshirt, we do nothing. But the carpenter pencils, we make we mark that up like 700%.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I think it's like
go to the Wall Street
it's like $1
floor
it's
right
now. It's like 75 cents. I don't know how much it is for the carpenter pencils. But there's also a special bundle. New sweatshirt with the beanie for $60. That's a $15 savings. I don't know why we're doing that. I don't know why we're doing that. Oh, God. Matt, Well, we got Nomi here. Oh, Matt, let's hear what Matt's got on the Matt Leckian media universe.
Tomorrow night, Wednesday at 8 Eastern time, we're talking to Tominisha John about Barbados becoming a republic and down with monarchies. And so check that out.
Did you say you're talking to Tommy John?
Tominisha John.
Okay.
Not Tommy John, the guy that this famous baseball surgery is named after.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the pajamas. It's a pajama brand.
Oh, is it? No, I didn't know that. No, but this will be talking about the Caribbean.
Or boxers, I guess, too. Underwear.
Nomi, what's happening on the Nomiki show?
Our universe, our media empire. Well, our media empire. So today on what was that?
Your mic's not working. We can hear you, but it is.
Oh yeah, it's the room.
It's the room.
This, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but it's not coming from the mic. Tell us now, and then we'll get the break. We'll fix it.
Perfect. Sounds good. So we are going to be, Walker Bragman's going to join us. He's got a new story out today, but he's also been in a little bit of a feud online. That's tonight. I as a teaser, just check out his Twitter page and you'll know it's one of our favorite smear artists, to be named unnamed, but it's gotten like, he just created a video, basically pointing out every single one of their false, claims about ivermectin and the vaccine, and it's really beautiful. And so he's going to come on and talk about that and what they did, and with an epidemiologist. That's on Rockfin. Starts off at youtube.com/The Naomi Key Show. And if you can give me 2 seconds, I have one more plug. It's a very basic plug.
Of course.
Okay, so I'm on the board of Matriarch, which is a PAC and a C4 that supports working class progressive women running for office. And in January 29th, we're going to do an all-day training. It's going to be digital because of the variant, but it's really extraordinary. Women who are running, all women who are running up and down the ballot or thinking about running this cycle, we urge you to join. It's free. If you want to help contribute, of course, to the training, it does cost money, and we're trying to pay everybody. So you can go to matriarchpac.com, and there's a little donate button. But if you want to sign up, or if you want to nominate a candidate, nominations are open. Just go in there and fill out the form and go to the page to sign up. And I'm going to probably keep plugging if it's okay, because we want to get as many women as possible to join the training.
Great. That's great. And this is happening when?
January 29th, all day online. Cynthia Nixon is going to be doing a keynote. We have a bunch of really amazing names that are going to be talking. We're talking about labor, new tools available for progressives, how to become viable earlier so you get all the endorsements, all the economic challenges working class women face that a lot of other institutions don't address, so that we can get more people elected and learn from the last couple of years. So
awesome.
That's great. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Nomi's going to fix her mic, and we'll be right back with the fun half after this. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance.
Ooh.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
And back.
Folks, we've just been informed that our servers are down. I guess it's servers are down all on the East Coast for Amazon servers. Is that what it is, or something? I mean, not necessarily for the. I don't know about the store, but you obviously cannot. I am the show. We will be looking, and I'm doing this. I'm going to, tweet this out. But if you want to, I am the show, you can go to hashtag Majority Report. We'll do it.
Can I tell you a story about Amazon? Because it's like trauma just hit me.
Yeah.
When I was running for office, we had a rule that we didn't use Uber or Amazon for anything. We didn't buy anything from Amazon, and we didn't, through Uber or Lyft or any of the cards. It was always New York City taxis. And one day I'm looking at our filing and our reports. I'm like, there's one Amazon expense, and I'm losing my mind. I'm like, who took the credit card? I'm running around like, who did it? We have to get it refunded. And no one would fess up. It was like, people were like, she'll know me, but it was me. So like far of it, we realized our website was hosted. Our developer had done it.
Yeah.
Had no idea. They're like in every single area of your life, penetrating every single.
Where they, certainly prior to the pandemic, that was what was generating all of their income, was the servers. And I mean, this was a dynamic like that you would see even like in the early sort of blogosphere. Like I think like Daily Kos rode on the servers, I think, of Sports Nation, if I remember correctly. Like wow. People started buying server time, and that was, you would basically have a server farm. And once you invested in that, that became a big sort of, I don't know, launching pad. I mean, that's what the CIA uses Amazon servers, and it's just, they're ubiquitous.
Created a monopoly and then became digital landlords.
Yep.
Well, that's interesting. The CIA uses it. I wonder if this came up like during the Putin meeting. Conspiracy. Just asking a question.
Oh, wow. Look at the...
What?
All right. I was just looking at I'm going into the... there. I see
I quote
Emma's in
tweeted
there.
you.
Yeah, there you go. All right, good.
Just to get more engagement, because just so much.
Right. No, I understand.
I'm just a way better tweeter, and people pay more attention to what I have to say. So.
You two will get old, Emma. You reach a point where you're just tired.
Well, I mean, Sam, you are in true boomer fashion. You had a typo in your tweet, but
I did. Okay. Hey, our servers are down. Yeah, one word. Our servers.
Our servers.
Yeah, that's the way I do that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Cuomo brothers?
Oh, I mean, what else is there to think?
I guess they're done.
I bet you they're going to come out. I have a feeling, this is so crazy, but this is, I have a feeling there's going to be a new flavor of like anti-Trump, anti-woke. It's not like our people on the left who've been like, so, people who've been radicalized on the left that they've, turned into right-wing people. It's like centrists who refuse to go further left take Republican money, don't align with Trump, and they're going to create their own little like ecosystem online brand for like the Cuomo-sexuals. Oh, because they still have a following, of course. And there's plenty of these people. See, this is you, Sam, you're such an East Coast elite. You go out into like middle America and you talk to Democrats, normie Democrats, not even middle America, talk to normie Democrats outside the progressive universe. And, Thanksgiving dinner, well, I think they went too far. I think we're getting a little bit too sensitive here. It's not like the woke thing. It's like a flavor of that. And I think there's a brand there and they're going to totally take advantage of it, launch their own thing. I don't know if Andrew's going to get away with,
but that's the problem. But the problem that they have is that he's gone. Like there's no, like those people who, there's no doubt that there's a market for sort of like an anti-wokeism, but there's no other proposition the organizing proposition for those people. They don't have politics.
Money.
But I mean, when you talk about in terms of, I'm not saying that, we could have no label and we could have, those type of like organizations and that money, but there's no constituency. There's nobody. There's not going to be on Twitter. I mean, do you remember like when they tried the kick the can stuff and all of that? Like the what was the not the no labels? What was the
They're boring.
Well, that's my point. Is that
no. This is like Chris Christie types. Like they're going to survive. They'll find. I mean, Chris Christie is literally like no one thought that he would be able to come back.
Are you talking about you're going to see online like you're going to see? I just don't think there's. I don't think people.
I think it's way more Democrats than you're even aware of. That quiet, like maybe they don't come out quiet publicly and defend, but they're definitely quiet supporters. They think that it's gone too far in the Democratic Party, that AOC is too much, and it's that tribe.
I don't doubt that those people are out there, but they're not on Twitter. They're not creating.
Brooklyn Dad defiant.
Yes. They're definitely. I know. It's sad, Sam, to see they're
on Twitter, but I don't know how representative Twitter is of anything except just that those people exist. But I can't quantify it.
Yeah,
I think they're on Twitter, and I think they're in real life.
I think in real life too. I mean,
of course. Yeah. I mean, I think but I think that I don't know. How do you argue around that if the guy who you're supposedly rallying around is gone?
You mean like, no, I don't think it is a political motive. I think, Chris Cuomo even said, I'll see you soon. Like, I'm not going. And he basically admitted that he can't go to Fox News. He can't go to some right-wing media. He can't so he has to create another vehicle. And I think there are plenty of people who would join in some sort of like retired bro conversation online. I mean, through some podcasts. Well, I just watch a podcast.
I have my doubts about online because I think like the same constituency just wants to passively turn on CNN and like see what Cuomo has. I mean, I think whoever they replace him with, whether it's Jake Tapper having a primetime slot or whoever they pick, I don't know. I've not been keeping up with it. They'll follow who that person as well.
Well, now there's like, did you see what happened with Don Lemon?
Oh,
this is insane. So Don Lemon was advising Jussie Smollett and saying that he had, basically tipped him off that the police were investigating him. So very similar sort of situation, was released through documents and testimony yesterday. And so now he's in the same what on earth? But it's all being deconstructed, right? Everyone knows CNN operates this way.
Right. Well, I don't know if everybody knows that, to be honest.
We know that.
I'll say it does not shock me at all that Don Lemon operates in that way. I met him once.
All I can say is for that Tim Heidegger character who would tell me that I was not up to snuff and specifically, compare me to Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo. I'll tell you who's eating a lot of crow today, and that's Tim Heidegger. So
why would he? he compared you to them? Why?
Oh yeah, well he would just complain that I didn't have their journalistic, bona fides, and I think Tim Heidegger is eating a big crow sandwich today.
Yeah.
Or and probably real crow, like literally
crow for breakfast.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a crow omelet?
Crow burrito.
That's
the one.
That might hide.
He's a weird guy. It wouldn't surprise me if he was.
The beak is where the nutrients are.
All right, let's move on from that. Let's talk about some news, folks, with some real integrity. Sean Spicer on Newsmax and Lindsay Keith interviewed their former boss, or I should say Sean Spicer's former boss. He's sort of like back into the fold right now, like
making the rounds.
Yep. Let's play this. This is number 3.
Mr. President, in the book, there's a picture of you with Vice President Pence, and you talk about the caption that you wrote, and I understand you wrote all the captions on these photos, says that you got along great except on one issue.
Vice
President Pence on Thursday.
For 1 second. A lot of people wonder who wrote the captions in the book that I supposedly wrote. I did. I wrote the captions.
Other by.
Not Spicer needed to come out that way. Like, if you wrote a book, you're really bragging that you wrote all the captions?
Well, I mean, like, if the photo is captioned, maybe it says like
Michael Wolff doesn't write his own captions.
I did this also I did this for our yearbook when I graduated too. So
they actually rejected a lot of my captions, but put some of them in there.
Okay, let's go back. Sean Spicer bragging about the caption. Right, that's great.
Only bit he did right.
And you talk about the caption that you wrote, and I understand you wrote all the captions on these photos, says that you got along great except on one issue. Vice President Pence on Thursday said that he did the right thing on January 6th. In your mind, did he do the right thing, and is that obviously the one thing that you didn't agree with him on?
Totally, and he didn't do the right thing, and he's a person who's a good person. He didn't do whatever it is that you might say he should have done, because, and I think you agree with me, and a lot of people agree with me, if you see that the election was fraudulent, if you see that there are more votes than there are voters, if you see many of the things that went along, and they're coming out on a weekly basis, more and more and more, and you'll be seeing more come out. It's not me. It's states now. Look at what's going on in Pennsylvania. They're sending subpoenas to many people. And now the federal government will try and stop that because they don't want that to happen. They got away with something that is, in my opinion, the crime of the century. And instead of going after Antifa and BLM and all these people that killed a lot of people and burned down our cities, and what they did, the destruction, they're going after people that were protesting the election. The election was the insurrection. The November 3rd date was the insurrection. The January 6th date was not the insurrection. That was the protest. And what's happening is a disgrace. They're going after and destroying these people instead. And I'm not saying everybody behaved. They didn't behave. But there were a lot of other people involved there, and they know who they were, but they're not showing it. They killed Ashley Babbitt. They shot her and they killed her. There was no reason for that. If that ever happened the other way around, you would be seeing trials on television right now. And the man that did it wouldn't have a chance. This guy couldn't get out fast enough. He couldn't get out fast enough to say how he shot an unarmed young lady. They killed Ashley Babbitt, and that was the person that died. Nobody else died on January 6th. That was the person that died. So it's a very disgraceful thing that's happening. And don't kid yourself. The public gets it. They understand. And they're not happy.
And you wrote that under you wrote that as a caption for a photo, right?
You know what killed Ashley Babbitt was Trump talking exactly like that.
Yeah.
That is what killed Ashley Babbitt.
Well, it's so crazy. It's like he's basically trying to say it wasn't all those people storming the Capitol were Antifa, if we get this right. Am I getting this right? All of them were Antifa. Antifa killed Ashley Babbitt. And whoever killed Ashley Babbitt, if it wasn't Antifa, they would be on trial right now.
Antifa herded Ashley Babbitt into the Capitol like she was a steer on the cattle range, and now she's dead.
He also says nobody did. I mean, it's hard to follow. He's like doing that incredible like non sequitur train of like diarrhea speak, but he says nobody else died on January 6th. I mean, that's factually incorrect, but like for him, it's nobody else who was a real patriot, nobody else who matters. It's hard to decipher.
What I found interesting and a little bit disturbing is he has the capacity to understand that he cannot criticize Mike Pence directly. He needs, and he knows, I mean, he's not, he is not out of control. He knows that what he needs is to maintain that fundamentalist constituency. And he can't maintain it without criticizing Mike Pence. I mean, by criticizing Mike Pence. So he's got to say on this one thing, and he could. That's why he was stumbling around until he got into his like sort of his groove there. That's going to make it interesting in 2024. If Pence runs against him at one point, you don't think that Pence is going to run?
Oh no, you think so?
I mean, he's certainly behaving as if he was going to run. What else is he going to do?
I mean, well, I don't know what else he would do, but I don't know. Maybe I just don't get I think with I don't think anybody has the courage on the right unless there's someone like a Chris Christie or Kasich to run against, Trump again.
The more people who jump in, the lower the bar to entry. And so if you get the Chris Christie and the Kasich, and you're going to have, and one or two other people jump in. Once you start getting around 4 or 5 or 6 people, then I think you're going to start to see the first 6 are going to be the 4.
Tulsi Gabbard will join.
She might. I mean, but as a, VP potential. I mean, I don't think that's
Trump. Actually, right. Trump and Gabbard. Oh my God.
I mean, I don't think that is particularly out of bounds. And
they like her. I mean, remember when he first came into office, she was under consideration for.
But she went to his office. Remember, she visited him.
Yeah. So I mean, once you get like 4 or 5 people in there, the next 4 or 5 become much easier to enter into that race. And then once you get 9, going to 15 is even easier.
Yeah.
And so I think I think he understands that he can't attack Pence right now. I imagine when they get on stage together, if they do, Pence is also not. They're all going to sort of. Pence would be one of those people who doesn't attack Trump and lets the Chris Christies attack Trump and sort of stands there. It's more saintly. Not, but
it'll be like Pence and Meghan McCain.
Yeah.
Meghan McCain's too lazy. She wants just like a media job. That's what she wants, and she wants constant attention on it. Well, yeah.
My understanding is that the hoodie and the beanie bundle is sold out, but you can still buy them individually. So. There you go.
Oh.
I've been told.
How is that possible?
Listen, I don't know. I'm not in charge of this. Somebody asked, have I heard of the Sigma variant?
Sigma?
Yeah, don't.
Oh. Forget that. And, is it Nina Turner's birthday today? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Nina Turner. I did.
Shares it with Betsy and shares it with Chomsky.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Somebody says that we should get on TikTok. Yeah, we're TikToking about that. That's in.
Only if your daughter can run it, please. That would be so fun. Like off the record moments with Sam Seder, and it's just like his daughter following him around as he like yells or grunts about having to like stand up.
Yeah, she sort of does that already, but not much on TikTok. In South Australia, thousands of McDonald's workers have joined a class action suit against McDonald's, accusing them of not allowing staff to have their paid 10-minute breaks. Oh, good for them.
What? Jesus.
Having worked
10-minute breaks.
Having worked at McDonald's, I don't remember ever doing 10-minute breaks. I mean, we got the normal one where you can eat, but a 10-minute break, like, I don't.
Oh my God.
That'd be news at my place.
Folks can also hang out at the what do you call it? The Discord and at Majority Discord. Hoping the hashtag Majority Report becomes a daily thing on Twitter, so I can like some tweets from fellow MR fans. Maybe also hashtag MR Live could be a hashtag too. Love the show. Quick technical question, says Jetland. Are there any plans to return to the previous video production? Or will you be keeping the Zoom for the near future? Yes, we're planning to do that. But as Emma said, as soon as I say we're going to do this, then you start the clock, and it's about 6 months out. And then
I mean, I understand. Like, I feel we could the Zoom thing is easy, and like we got into the flow of it in the pandemic. I don't know any other workflow, so it'll be interesting once we try something new.
This is not getting that much attention, but this January 6th story about the where did I put that now?
Do you want me to read some more IMs?
Yeah, sure. You read some more IMs while I try and find this. Shoot.
Mayan Pillow Guy. I really enjoyed the interview with David Dayen about the mass quitting in the labor market until it turned into an obvious ad for the Comcast internet at the end by making a competitor's service look horrible. I mean, you're really onto something.
Okay, I got this.
You found it?
Yep. So the story came out yesterday. The Colonel Earl Matthews, a former DC National Guard official, he held high-level National Security Council and Pentagon roles during the Trump administration, wrote a 36-page memo saying that the Pentagon's Inspector General produced an error-riddled report that protects a TARP Army official who argued against sending the National Guard to the Capitol on January 6th, delaying the insurrection response for hours. He says that two Army generals, General Charles Flynn and General Walter Piatt, the director of the Army staff. Flynn was the deputy chief of staff for operations on January 6th.
Last name sounds familiar.
Yes, are absolute and unmitigated liars for their characterization of events on that day. Now, originally, this is Charles Flynn is Michael Flynn's brother. Mm-hmm. They also claimed that Charles Flynn, remember, initially was not involved in those meetings on that day, and then subsequently had to admit that he was. I mean, this is a little bit scary because if the Army generals stopped the response of the National Guard, one would imagine that they would have enough of a good enough of a reason to articulate it. Now, maybe this is just classic CYA, but I don't know. I don't think somebody is willing to write a 36-page memo after he's already left the National Guard. Seems, I don't know. Seems to set off a couple alarm bells for me.
I mean, I think it also points to, like, there is a semblance of a deep state in many ways that we don't have access to, but not one that's adversarial to the likes of someone like Donald Trump.
Well, yeah. Listen, I think there can be a deep state that is, adversarial to Trump. I think there's like a deep state, like a military and a national security establishment that tries to discipline presidents as soon as they come in, and sometimes to more effect than others. But I think what's going on here is that there can also be other people who have loyalties that may be, lean one way or another. Or this could be just about these two lying to cover their asses because they didn't respond in time. But you also have to wonder, why didn't they respond in time?
Right, because we know that a lot of this information was available, at least to the FBI, about the potential for violence that was going to go down. I mean, it was available to the general public. We were talking about how this was going to be a scary demonstration in the weeks and days leading up to January 6th. So now, because they didn't act, the best case scenario is that they're punting blame back and forth. But I think that's what it is.
Well, but also ultimately, two things can be true at once, though. It's like they had there was factionalism, and there is some sort of deep ideological state.
Right.
And this isn't a situation where they didn't react in a vacuum. They didn't react to the pleas of the Capitol Police Force. I mean, this is not like we didn't pick up on it. This is like we're rejecting the request from the people on the ground, which, raises the bar as to, what level of misfeasance was operating here. This is not just maybe necessarily we screwed up, because it's
the appearances. Flynn should be gone. I think just the appearance and we know who your brother is. Mm-hmm. You have to react to the appearance of these things, even if you aren't going to get super conspiratorial about it. It looks very, very bad.
He should be gone, but the point is that I think there are a lot more Charles Flynn types high up in our military than we probably want to believe.
Oh yeah.
And that's why, for example, when we talked about how on cable news they love having on military officials to criticize Trump, and there's this tendency by some, especially in elite circles, to say, well, that to herald these military leaders, they're above civilian leadership, right? They're above the whims of the people who are electing them, and that's dangerous because it's inherently undemocratic. These people are not accountable to many, and this is just an example of it. And so privileging their power over people elected by the general public, however distasteful they might even be in the interim, it's a dangerous road to go down.
I mean, I feel the same way. I think Milley should be gone for what came out about his controverting, Trump's stuff with China. Which isn't the same to say that Milley shouldn't have acted that way. Okay, you act that way. You did so because you thought there was a potential threat. Good, but now you got to go because, frankly, you should have resigned. At that point, you resign if you think that you're acting in a sort of extra constitutional way to protect the country or to protect from a World War III or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Follow your conscience, but when that threat has died down, you resign. Or you get fired.
Well, this is the classic McChrystal, debate. Who are you answering to, the commander in chief or to your country? And ultimately, what you're seeing now is not just a threat of having to be ejected from their positions, which they've spent most of their lives, working up to, but simultaneously there's the legal threat. And so what I'm seeing is this cover of intention. And it seems to me that this is much, much more than having to resign, but, whether or not this turns into some sort of, who knows what's going to happen legally, but it just seems like they're covering their butts, not because they might lose their job, but because they might be prosecuted because they're trying to set up, it's a chain of command. That's the amazing thing about the military is the chain of command. So the buck does stop at somebody. And if there is any proof of intent, not just, understanding that there was a threat, but intent because they have to answer their chain of command. So if they ignored and it was presented before whoever, the buck stopped at, that person may have had loyalty to somebody else.
Well, the Flynns were on McChrystal's staff.
Yep. They learned the master. With all that said, Donald Trump's former attorney, John Eastman, he is the guy who came up with the memo Federalist Society, really sort of full on just Republican operative for years and years and years, came up with the memo that was, let's be clear, a game plan for how the vice president should essentially politically work the levers to make sure that even though Joe Biden was elected president, he didn't assume the presidency. He has been subpoenaed by that House January 6th committee. And of course, where do you go in first instance? You run to Tucker Carlson's show.
We don't even have a ranking minority member on the committee to give equal time for the questioning of witnesses.
So why comply? What, I mean, honestly, at this point, look, if it's totally fake, this is just some Soviet show trial, which it is, then why would the rest of us have any kind of obligation to play along with it, honestly?
Well, we shouldn't, but Congress has the power to issue criminal contempt. Normally, those don't go anywhere in such charades as this, but the Department of Justice is fully in line. And, you know, they've already brought one criminal indictment against one of the people that refused to comply. Yeah. And the phone companies, I think, would prefer not to comply, but, you know, they're going to be held in criminal contempt if they don't. So they have now forced me and my lawyers to work with some of these other people to file a court action to try and block these unbelievably expansive and unconstitutional subpoenas of our private records and communications.
Yeah, it'd be nice if someone in the media would cover this. Maybe everybody. John Eastman,
I love his, how obvious Tucker Carlson is. His like historical references and what he chooses to compare them to. We call them a Moscow trial there, or a Soviet show trial, right? Of course. I mean, yeah, it's just like that. The modern Democratic Party is just like that, going after right wingers under Stalin.
Right, except for it's also not a trial; it is a hearing, and this guy's refusing to comply.
Doing show hearings.
Yep. Show hearings.
We could have a more recent example of like the kind of showy but toothless investigation, and that is the Benghazi hearings.
Yeah.
Compared it to that, I'm not sure why he didn't, but I know why.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, Eastman's complying, but Mark Meadows apparently is going to stop cooperating with the committee, and there's going to be a big showdown. And it's really just a question, we'll see if Merrick Garland has what it takes to complete it. I don't see how you don't, because I don't see how Congress could compel testimony in the future on anything if these criminal contempt referrals are not upheld. So we'll see.
Also, you are in the media, Tucker. I'm not sure if you're aware.
Yeah.
You're covering.
He's the
Don't censor me.
highest rated cable television host. So it seems like it's getting coverage.
Yeah. And now his opposition's out.
And has he brought in like maybe somebody from the committee? Because it seems to me he could probably get them.
Yeah. I mean, there are Republicans, at least in the House, that he could probably call upon to talk about this too, who are, well, I mean, maybe you'd call him. That's a dumb point. Continue.
But I mean, it's not being covered except for the fact that it's being covered.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like the way cults try to cut off any sort of information sources. He's just poisoning the well. Just stay home. I mean, you see that a lot in media, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what would happen. Bradley, just go up and put up your screen and Google for us Eastman subpoena. Like, I mean, is it possible that MSNBC is not covering the January 6th hearings about Eastman? Is that likely? I'm just curious. CNN comes up there.
Rolling Stone.
And
Rolling Stone, New York Times, NBC, CNBC.
Yeah, it's weird. It is weird. Nobody.
USA Today.
I mean,
Daily Dot.
I mean, that is, what Tucker's doing there. He's basically saying, look, there's no point even to look at this for anywhere else. This is the only way you'll get the information is from the guy who's the subject of, or at least a potential subject of this investigation. And the only way you're going to hear any information about it is from his perspective first and only.
And maybe secondarily on a venture capitalist funded media platform.
Right, coming to a Substack near you.
And yeah.
Let's go to some of our IMs. Let's see. Jimmy Catrone, Heidecker is toxic, without a doubt. Apparently, I'm getting now a new report that the hoodie and beanie bundle is returning. We just had a little hiccup.
We have somebody on full time giving reports from the.
My sister keeps texting me. Caleb Norwood. Remember when all those CEOs were saying they were going to automate all of the jobs if workers asked for $15? Wouldn't a pandemic where mass layoffs are happening and an excuse to not have humans near your product be a perfect opportunity to automate? Indeed. Yes. Turns out Walter Block, not so correct. Sorry about that.
We should sometimes do these like hashtag majority report IMs. Maybe it drives more people to watch the show live.
Well, I don't know.
Because it's on Twitter.
I find it a little bit difficult to follow on this.
Okay.
But Demental Floss. Finally, the IM establishment's been defeated. Left his bet. The almighty loaf. Has Biden ever said the words public options since getting into office? Marijuana decriminalization? Why are popular policies always put on the back burner by Democrats?
Well, to be fair about the marijuana, he put that on the back burner during the primary.
Yeah. He was pretty open about how he feels.
To be fair, though, I mean, like, okay, listen, I'm not a defender of Biden, but I think we should acknowledge this too. If we ever gain power and you have a moment to pass something sweeping and it's, there's an economic crisis and a pandemic, he's focused on two things, sort of on the PRO Act and the BBB. And like, that's a lot.
He could take marijuana off of the Schedule 3 classification in 2 seconds.
Agreed. But is he going to lose? I mean, thinking politically, like power wise, I'm not thinking as a progressive. I'm saying if we take power, you're going to have
legalized it.
100%, not about a poll, but about what is he trying to, it's about, deal making. Like someone is sitting there saying, don't do this because you're going to lose that vote on the BBB. Or
That's
whatever.
Biden. That someone is Joe Biden. I mean, I just think I agree. I don't think there's a political calculus to there's no political trade-off imaginable outside of like complete Washington brain thought that and I think it's just Biden's ideologically opposed to.
But there's always something that's on the what I'm trying to say is there's always something on the platform. They're like, why didn't we bring this up yet? Why didn't you do it? And in his mind, and frankly, anybody who takes power at that level, you're sitting there calculating, okay, how am I going to pass this if I don't have that vote because I'm pissing off this person? And that's how we end up getting angry at AOC for not doing something when she has to leverage what she prioritizes and she's prioritizing something much bigger. I'm not defending Biden, but that is the way that their minds think. And it might be his ideology.
I also think that he would probably, if it was somebody else vote that he needed that was leveraging that one topic, his ideology wouldn't stay in the way of that.
Exactly.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I think like for a lot of the unilateral stuff, we really can't assess, it seems to me, until after the BBB is either passed or dead.
Yeah.
Right. And then it really becomes like, I mean, I know personally, if I was president, I wouldn't be doing the unilateral stuff when I'm still involved in this because I don't want to give, Joe Manchin was like, I was going to vote for the BBB, but then this whole pot thing, I can't do it now because everybody's so high that this could increase inflation and, whatever.
But that's why movements are so important too, because we can pressure those people in other ways. So, whether it's immigration or foreign policy or whatever, that's why you keep pressuring all the different people, in power that can, be leveraged in some way.
Aaron Kowalski.
Aaron Kowalski.
Well, this is Kowalski from Nebraska.
I know, but Aaron, how official.
Yes. Well, he's on Twitter.
On Twitter.
It's the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor attack. I had a great-grandfather that survived the Arizona sinking. Recommend the World War II YouTube channel for a great report of that attack, the war, and their profound series called The War Against Humanity. Why do those two look like if they're wondering, did I leave the oven on again? Something burning. That's Spicer. I have a feeling you're talking about. Matt, you guys think it's possible that poor overall health in rural areas compared to urban areas could be a cause why rural areas have more vaccine distrust? If people in rural areas see people dying after vaccination, they could misinterpret the cause. I don't think that people are using real world examples to drive their mistrust of the vaccine. I think it is in rural areas. I mean, I can tell you, when I lived full time up in Hudson, you know, you look out there, things get dark. By the time you get to winter, you don't know what is out there. Mountain lion, ninjas. It's not hard. Matt, I mean, you know, right? I mean, you get out there in the country. My
brother lives outside of Bismarck now, and I had to put my brights on to get out there, and it's just completely pitch black. Yeah, but I think people do use some sort of I heard an example when I was home of knew somebody who they had a vaccination when they were younger and they had a bad reaction to it, and that story will travel so much faster in these conditions than it would under a normal condition. So like everybody, if that happens and there is an anecdote, then everyone becomes aware of that anecdote.
But the weird thing is that the COVID death doesn't travel in the same way.
No, absolutely not. Or even long COVID. Like my mom knows 3 people that she works with. She works in a hospital system that have long COVID, and it's just like the way certain people talk about this pandemic, it's like they don't know anyone that works in healthcare or something.
Let's put it this way: if COVID was delivered with a needle, I think people would take that much more seriously. I think there's just something like, you know, people have a natural.
It's a cognitive dissonance, basically.
But what percent
institutions?
Well, no, it's not. I honestly think that like what percentage of the population is just nervous about a needle? I mean, 20.
I think a lot more of it's just institutions. I mean, when you see it, who's distrusting? It's the left anti-vaxxers who distrust institutions, supported Bernie, and, you know, believe in yoga, don't believe in big pharma. You've got communities that have been repeatedly spied on, investigated, had medical violation, whatever, all from the government and the medical industry. And of course, you know, far right Republicans who don't trust anything because they think the government's coming to get their guns.
But why is it that they're skeptical of the vaccination as opposed to monoclonal antibodies?
Because it's distributed by the government, and the government's pushing it, and Anthony Fauci is the head of that, and he has and then it's the deep state, and then you like end up being radicalized by the right.
I mean, if it wasn't Anthony Fauci, it would be somebody else. There's a natural inclination to be suspicious about vaccine.
Nobody wants to take. Sorry,
needles are just scary.
And the monoclonal antibodies and the ivermectin stuff, all that stuff is like how you are empowered as a consumer.
Yeah.
And you found like, oh, you stayed up late and caught the right infomercial at 2 a.m. and now you saved your life because of it.
It also makes them feel special because they are going against what they perceive as an orthodoxy. And secondly, I think we have zero literacy when it comes to preventative treatment in this country, and that's what the vaccine is. It prevents you from, for the most part, having severe COVID symptoms and dying. And we just there's
big pharma.
I also think that there is the natural tendency for skepticism, and I think like a big pharma has done some horrible things. But having Donald Trump as the president right up there, and having to have public health officials, and public health is I think is inherently also tricky because you are recommending a course of action that is best for society, but not necessarily best for any specific individual. And that there's always that tension there.
And we've already individualized healthcare in this country to a degree that other countries haven't.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think just even broadly speaking, I mean, I think that's why you can see protests in other countries too, because broadly speaking, I mean, look, the reality is that in, you know, whatever, if everybody was taking whatever medical procedure it is, needed whatever medical procedure it is, right? Like whatever. You need your appendix. Everybody needs your appendix out. The fact is that I am sure there is a percentage of times where people have their appendix taken out, even if it hasn't exploded, where people die, people get injured, right? I mean, this is every medical procedure has some measure of risk. And so, but if the public policy is everybody needs their appendix out, let's just assume for whatever reason there was some disease where it affects your appendix, or for the individual, it may the risk is different for the individual than it is for society, and I think like sometimes that's hard for people to sort of wrap their heads around. And when you start and you enter into a pandemic with an administration that is war itself over public policy messaging and public health messaging, where the CDC is getting is being manipulated, and they're afraid to actually come out with the recommendations that they need to come out with, it begins to undercut that trust, even regardless of who it is that is saying this stuff.
I also think, Sam, though, that this is this all being true, but yes, and they seized on an opportunity to a crisis. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? The right seized an opportunity. They saw how the Trump people responded, and they saw through trends. I mean, there's enough data out there now to see who was responding to the vaccine, and they started to use it as an opportunity to radicalize people. I mean, we all know in the last 6 months, I can't believe how many people who I considered to be on the left during the Bernie years and are not involved in politics, are just individuals, are completely radicalized on the right now. They don't trust, they were backing the recall in California. They don't trust the government at all. They don't trust any institutions, blah, blah, blah. But it all started, and it's all because of the vaccine. Don't let the government control me. I could name at least like 6 or 7 people that were Bernie people, were leftists before Bernie, and have been radicalized. I mean, this is an enormous opportunity for the far right to keep their seeds planted and sprout them as demographics were not going in their favor. And I think it's a way to loop in younger people too, who they knew they couldn't win with other issues.
Well, I don't even, I mean, like I anecdotally, and I don't know how broadly you can extrapolate this, but like I know people who are largely like apolitical, just want to live their lives. They were, at least, or I perceived them as such, and they're not vaccinated because they're just generally anxious people. And so like they perceive it's experimental. I mean, and I don't like the Democratic governors in my state here in New York, pushing this down my throat. Then that's radicalizing too, because like it's forced people to be thoughtful about politics or proactive in a public health way that makes them very anxious and uncomfortable. And that can there's a reaction.
And they're targeting them. They're targeting them. They see that and they're like, all right, this is how we're going to loop you in. And then, you go down the research spiral, and the next thing you know, you're citing Joe Rogan or whatever.
Yeah, the right absolutely cannot say no to any sort of populist issue, because most of their issues are like we should lower corporate taxes and like the abortion stuff, right? That's not a natural thing. And they are speaking to the people who, like, you can tell in their rhetoric, like, did you know you can still get infected even if you're vaccinated? Like, yeah, but the point is you lower your risk of infection, and then that's ultimately going to stop the spread or slow the spread. But they're really just talking to the one person who thought like, oh, if I get vaccinated, this is going to be everything. And now you can try to like you said, capture them in their frustration at the moment, because they're not trained to think of and not told how to even think about these things in a way that they help society broadly.
Otto6 at #Majority Report never experienced so much pain. Can I get a shofar for this enduring case of shingles? Oy, get that vaccine.
My God.
Oy.
I'm so sorry.
I got my first dose of my shingle vaccine. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was the last day that Andy Kindler was on. Can you look that up? Because I gotta do it from 2 to 6 months out from there. Kindler said something about the shingles vaccine. I was like, I should get my shingles vaccine. I walked by a pharmacy and it was like, there was a sign.
They offer it at every pharmacy.
And I walked in.
If you've had shingles, can you still get the vaccine? Because isn't it like I've had shingles before, like 15 years ago. It's the most painful thing ever.
Yes.
You can still get it.
Yeah. Because if you've had shingles before, you can get it again.
Right. Well, it's like if you have it's chicken pox, you know.
Yep.
Oh, it's so painful. Oh my God.
Gotta be quick, Martha. Hashtag Majority Report. Can we plug Abby Martin's work on exposing the military-industrial complex environmental destruction? Empire Files just dropped emergency coverage of Hawaii's drinking water being poisoned by the Navy. Oh, yes. I'll do that right now. Shoot. Do this.
Wait, was that about Hawaii? I'm sorry. I was trying to open Yeah. I wanted to do more research into that.
Brian Johnstown Massacre. Hey, Sam, Emma, and crew. When are you going to have Hassan the Hun or H3H3 Productions on the show to talk about their new show, Leftovers? We should do that soon. Nice enough. It's also Tom Waite's birthday.
Wow. Big birthday day.
Zeke says, just know that Majority FM is TikToking about TikTok. Don't worry. Marcus Nalesco, Majority MR crew, curious as to what it takes to run for local office.
Oh, I just saw you.
Naomi can answer. I just recently became super interested in politics this year and wondering if it's right for me.
So I definitely recommend, if you're a woman, definitely go to this matriarch training because we will walk you through all the aspects of how to get involved, how to, get involved in your community. And
even if you're not a woman, can you take the training?
So no, but if you want to be part of, if you're part of a woman's campaign, we're also offering it to them. We're actually urging all the candidates to bring, like, if they have a campaign manager already, to bring them to the training because there's more tactical stuff. But there are other trainings. I know Our Revolution and PCCC used to do a training together. There's a lot of infrastructure building to do. And I think this is what we're trying to address, at least on our side. Because even the trainings that do exist in the more establishment world, they don't touch on the unique challenges progressives face and the unique challenges working class people face. Because traditional trainings are like, okay, cool, go raise $300,000 and then we'll support you. But most people can't just open up their phone and call everybody and raise $300,000 in 2 months. But those who do get a runway ahead. And it's I would say, join a local, whether it's local DSA or figure out who your representatives are, see where they stand on issues, volunteer for whatever issue you really care about in your community. Get involved as much as you can in your community. That's a great start.
This is pretty funny from a cross. I have really no sense of what's happening post-Brexit in England these days.
God.
But none of it seems to be good.
There's a sleaze scandal going on, and apparently there's cocaine happening in the bathrooms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to see that they're still being able to import things. But here is British Prime Minister Boris Johnson with a reporter from the Sunday Times at, I guess it was a police event in Liverpool.
And you'll be able to notice that because
it's just like one.
Boris Johnson's in costume.
Sunday Times reported that a lot of cocaine use found in the toilets of Parliament.
Clear about one thing. Did Boris Johnson did he join the police department?
He's a volunteer police officer, just like Rittenhouse.
Oh, is he really? No,
I don't know.
Well, I mean, they do have that kind of tradition, right? Where the Prince Harry was in the military for a little bit. It's not beyond the question, right? That's what
I mean. He went to Afghanistan.
right, for a second. But I just mean there could be some sort of performative.
Boris just joins the police force when it's time to head to the donut shop. Maybe, I don't know. Let's put this up.
Whoa,
that was a tough one.
All right, guys.
Killed it in 1986.
Yeah, there you go. I'm bringing out the oldies. Here you go.
Sunday Times reported that a lot of cocaine use found in the toilets of Parliament. Can the public trust MPs on this issue?
Look, this government is absolutely determined to fight drugs and to make sure. I take the view that it's a long time really since you've heard a government say that drugs, Class A drugs, are bad and bad for society, bad for opportunity, bad for kids growing up in this country. That's my view.
We take it so seriously, I've actually joined the police force to go
seize the cocaine.
That I have the ability to go into Parliament and into the bathrooms and bust some of these guys.
Do you think cocaine is an obstacle to opportunity in the Parliament bathrooms, or is that like kind of like getting your foot in the door?
It's holding people back.
It's an obstacle to for an opportunity to fall asleep, right? That's what it is.
That's why they're so feisty on the floor.
There you go. I was about to say we played that clip a few weeks ago about and they were getting into it.
All the backbenchers are
up.
super high.
But as the police officer, can he go in there and seize the cocaine and bring it into the police force? You know how they seize cars? I think
maybe
forfeiture. Yes, forfeiture. Thank you.
So here's an update from The Guardian, just an overview of the sleaze scandals they've got going on. This is just the heading. It's a second jobs and lobbying scandal about, taking out egregious breach of lobbying rules. We have COVID contracts, so allegations that Tories MPs helped associates gain lucrative COVID contracts.
Wow.
Prime Minister's flat refurbishment after months of dodging questions about how Johnson paid up to $200,000 for a refurbishment. Okay, we'll continue. Johnson's job to Marabella. He took a vacation.
Well, that's one of the things I'm investigating as I'm a police officer.
The Spanish. What's the Spanish police outfit look like? Because he had to investigate his trip to Marabella. Parliamentary passes.
I'm serving myself with a warrant. Hands up, me.
Here we go. Much criticism was leveled at Johnson granting Archbrigadier Goldsmith a seat in the Lords immediately after he lost his seat in the 2019 election. However, the thorny issue was returned when it was reported that 15 of the last 16 Conservative Party treasurers have been offered a seat in the House of Lords. And then deleting in what...
Yes, but I said that drugs are bad. Who else has said that? No one.
And a couple more deleted and disappearing WhatsApps and attempts to sway watchdog panels. And that looks like it'll just about do it for the...
Have you seen my hat? You see my hat? It says police right there. This is what I was trying to go for after you finished this one. Oh, shoot. Stupid ad. Hold on. Stupid ad.
And now he's the impersonating a police officer.
Inspector Johnson. Your service.
I don't want to get that. That's the theme from SWAT.
Yeah, you're going to get you're right.
Sounded more like a porno theme.
Look at my hat. Of course, I'm on the case.
Trying to get to the bottom of this thing where people are impersonating the police.
It's not just the police, too, on the hat, too. It's on the hat. It's on the vest. It's on the collar. It's on it all. You got a little Scottish at the end.
Elementary, my dear Watson. We've done it. We've solved the case. Found that blow in the toilet.
Lord Rothermere. In the loo.
You see Boris Johnson going into the bathroom, looking under the stalls. Wait,
the ladies' bathroom.
1, 2, 3, 4. Why are there 2 people in there?
Do you have COVID? Those sniffles?
Should we do this? What is this? I don't know. Playing more the Elijah. Should we do the prophet? The prophet's pretty good. This is from the Elijah List Facebook. Who is this Elijah List guy?
It's like a Christian denominational.
Christian Facebook group.
Yeah. Yeah, just give you a sense of what's going on out there. This is a prophet, Johnny Enlow, self-proclaimed prophet, but those are the best. And
I mean, he would know.
He's on, exactly. He's on with Steve Schultz. This is the Elijah List, Steve Schultz. Let's watch this.
People want more proof of what's presently the truth, what's going on behind the scenes. But when there is a fog of war, you can't tell. So you try to tell people President Trump is not as disempowered as you think. And they want proof. Well, the proof will be forthcoming. I think the proof will be forthcoming that over the last year, ever since November 3rd of last year till now, they will find out that there is not a person on the planet that has exercised more power and authority than President Donald Trump. That will be revealed. And It's been bigger than being. If anything, he made a shift from president of the United States to president of the world, in the sense of how he's being used and what's taking place. Now, for those who want the proof, that's why you have to get through the fog of war or be above the fog of war to actually know what's taking place.
Get on Johnny Enlow's level, folks.
Right. You have to be above the fog so you can see down, and Donald Trump presiding over the world at Mar-a-Lago.
Question me on whether Donald Trump's the president of the world.
Is Donald Trump?
You don't get it. You don't get it, Emma. You're just so you can't cut through the fog.
Yeah, man. I'm here on Earth, and you're above me. You can see.
I mean, I gotta say, I'm a supporter of one world government. So if Trump has managed to do this, he's not my messenger, but hey, gotta appreciate the.
Well, at least Elijah's List doesn't have how many followers on Facebook?
Oh God.
Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, at least it's just some type of a completely marginal outfit with nobody following them. What's the numbers on that?
413,000. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Ben Shapiro's going to boost it, and
Let's go to war with ElijahList.com.
I also like the concept of evidence constantly being forthcoming, right? It's always just a little bit too far for us to see it.
It will only ever be forthcoming.
Call it pending.
When I was in college, one of the things I studied was Millenistic cults. And would pick a date, and everybody would take their sneakers off or something like that, and they would go and they would wait and they would go to whatever it was, Mount Shasta, and wait, and then the world wouldn't end. And then they would just look at each other and they go, "Oh my God, we forgot to carry the 2." And it would be another date.
It was a Mayan calendar. It wasn't.
Sometimes it would actually strengthen the group.
Yeah.
Having experienced that they were just off by one, there's some other dynamic going on there. And the thing is that the reason why you're having this sort of dovetail with fundamentalist Christianity and Q, which is what this is, right? Is because you've already been trained to be faith-based. Yeah. You don't need to learn to accept the reality of something that has absolutely no rational basis. And once you're there, it's just a matter of having somebody who is a trust agent essentially tell you something different.
It's the opiate for the masses. And Donald Trump's going to send them all to Israel, where they're going to take over, and that's it. That's the end of times right there.
Quizreal.
Q Israel.
Quizreal.
Casco. Oh, I'm sorry. George Jasko. Today we remember the brave souls who fought at Pearl Harbor. Looks like Japanese soldiers. Caster. Hashtag Majority Report. What's your opinion on nuclear power? Germany is a great example of why 50% plus of renewables is a bad idea. They have the most expensive electricity in the world. They have a lot of extra gas/coal capacity to cover low production days.
I think we've been clear about this before. I just don't want to get it.
Well, I'm not familiar enough exactly with what's going on with Germany. My opinion on nuclear power remains that if that nuclear power itself, in and of itself, I think is a option, but on a practical level, the amount of subsidies that we would have to pay for nuclear power, and the fact that I don't really trust private enterprise to keep us safe from what a small chance, very tiny chance of catastrophe could lead to. I'm a little skeptical in that regard. But
but not just catastrophe too. There's also a lot of waste that these private companies would be tasked with dealing with. I do not feel comfortable throwing a ton of our eggs in the basket of potentially another environmentally damaging enterprise. And I know people are going to be like, oh, but the risk is a lot lower than oil. That's fine. I mean, I understand if we were talking about oil or nuclear power, maybe you'd have my vote. But I want the transition to a green economy to be durable, and I don't find safer and even in the interim.
And I don't know what the turnaround time was if you started tomorrow on a new nuclear plant.
That's the problem, is it's decades.
Yeah, I mean, it takes too long.
Like, I mean, I think comparing France and Germany is instructive. Like, I think we'd be better off if we had more nuclear infrastructure. And obviously, you know, I take the concerns about spills and waste, but that's theoretical, and climate change is here right now, and it'd be nice to have the capacity that France does.
Right, but when we're talking about disposal of nuclear waste, I have yet to see a compelling argument about the scale that we're talking about here. What happens to that waste and how we're going to dispose of it?
A big mountain in Nevada.
I don't know.
What was that movie that came out like 7 years ago or so on Russia and how they stored their nukes, and just like how it was like one, you know, if someone mishandled it, it would.
Well, Chernobyl.
No, not Chernobyl. No. About now how they store their nukes. I forgot the name of it. Someone will chime in. I think Participant Media did it.
Joy Biden 3030. The Albert interview was excellent. That golden one was the opposite. Well, you know, what we like to try and do is make you appreciate the good. And so sometimes we put stuff that's maybe, you know, doesn't work out quite in the same way. Southern Rot. Hashtag Majority Report. Richmond teachers won collective bargaining rights last night in a school board vote.
Nice.
Wow. Right in Virginia in 50 years.
That is huge. Richmond is not easy.
Chris Khalil, hashtag Majority Report. Don't know if you saw on Twitter yet, but Kim Iverson is tripling down on her ridiculous take she did on Rising on the Michigan shooter. Yeah. All progressive outlets have done segments saying she's totally wrong on her conclusion. Well, of course she's tripling down, because this is
probably the first time people have talked about Rising in a while.
Yeah.
Exactly.
She is literally like, she's a far right, insane person from the internet that they have made into being a mainstream person. When you have people like David Dole, who's not verified on Twitter, and she's verified, I mean, it's insane. She's an absolutely insane person that is being pushed right now. Her conspiracies are out of control.
Nomi running interference for the obvious attempt by showing, by this website, showing a picture of the Michigan shooter as a young child to implicate all white people. If you don't see that, Nomi, I don't know what to tell you. A congressional baseball fan, hashtag Majority Report, with no more Cuomo and Lemon at CNN. Is Lemon gone?
No.
Their final podcast discussed Thanksgiving. Don told Chris he was just not welcome to the cookout, but because he knows the difference between stuffing and dressing, he's black, even though Cuomo family stuffing has clams and capicola in it. I don't know.
Ew.
Ardoin.
Clams and capicola and stuff.
Oh, my dad makes a seafood stuffing. It's actually quite good.
Ew.
Yep. Biden is also 500 years old. He can only focus on so much at the same time. Hashtag Majority Report. Tacticus Solarius. Study released in Journal American Medical Association on November 23rd assesses the link between COVID mortality rates and level of schooling completed. Not best analog for class, discussed in article. CDC dataset covers deaths until January 1st. So, what if everyone died of COVID-19 at the same rate as college-educated people in 2020? I'm not sure I understand how to read this graph. 48% fewer people would have died overall. 71% of people of color, less people would have died. 89% of people of color aged 25 to 64. I'm not sure I'm following this graph, to be honest with you. Jens Clausen. There's a pattern of apparatchiks like Merrick Garland, Jim Comey, and Robert Mueller failing the courage to follow through in their desire to protect their beloved bureaucratic system. Jude, what the hell? Sam's on to something about fear of needles. The number one piece of jargon tied to anti-vaccine rhetoric is calling it the jab. Hashtag Majority Report. I really do think that there is something not quite primal, but about a fear of needles.
Look at the basic jokes about the Fauci, ouchie, and the jokey pokey. Like it's all based on that stuff.
God, it's so juvenile. Are you joking?
But that's the level that Republicans appeal to people.
I think there's look, of all the things I take my kid to the doctor for, getting a shot is the thing he's afraid of.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a primal fear of being stabbed that I think is a opportunity for this. I mean, I just...
I couldn't even feel the needle, and I hate needles. Did you guys? It was like nothing.
My son got his second shot the other day, and it happened so quickly that he was like bummed they didn't have more time to look at his iPad. I mean, honestly, it's like he's playing what do you call it, Minecraft, and I gave it. I don't. He has very limited time on the iPad, and I gave it to him like 2 minutes. As soon as we sit down in the room, he looks at it, and then and I'm like talking to him, and then the nurse is like, I'm like, are you done? Yeah, she's like, hands me the Band-Aid, and I'm like, are you done? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, dude, you're done with Minecraft. And he's like, what? I didn't even get a chance to do anything.
Ouchie, ouchie. Like, that sounds like you're literally trying to, get a little baby to smile. Oh, ouchie, 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 ouchie. Jabby. Stabby, jabby.
It's twisted.
Yeah. But guns are safe.
2 cards. Sam, have you considered giving Chris Cuomo a chance to host the Majority Report?
Oh my God, please. That would be so much fun.
That would be actually a funny thing to do to somebody like to know me. Like she shows up. And
I would love it. I just read DMs with him.
or I just come into work and
he's sitting here.
He's sitting there, yeah.
I'm like, you've been replaced. So sorry.
No, Sam's been
replaced. I've been replaced. Are you kidding? Apparently, his contracts he's suing them for like $15 million.
Might be a lot.
18 million because they won't fulfill his $6 million contract. He had 3 years.
Because all that great news he was collecting for all that money. I mean, that's a scandal at those networks. Like the amount of money they put behind anchors as just the news collecting stuff gets hauled out, and you don't even have like any sort of foreign bureau or anything like that. It's just disgusting.
No foreign bureau, very few reporters. Most of the people on those panels, except not all of them, aren't even paid. Like they go on repeatedly, like in hopes of getting a contract. It's an entire scheme. It's a pyramid scheme. And if you get to the top, you're Chris Cuomo. And if you get to the top, you were from a Cuomo family.
Folks, we're going to read 2 more, I guess, tweets. Philbo Schwaggins. I think the issue with the vaccine hesitancy in rural communities is simply because there's no health infrastructure in these super rural communities. I think that's true, but I think there's a deficit of other things. I really do. I mean,
think about it. Like every community, you've got a church, right? Republicans are so good at organizing locally around churches. They're cutting funding for rural health clinics and hospitals. Obviously, education is severely underfunded. So when you put all these things together, and there's no Democratic Party, not that has anything to do with it, the conditions are right.
I think, listen, there's also just been a very durable, not just in this country, but around the world, a divide between rural and urban. And there is, even like Castro, when I was in Cuba, all the police, not all, but much of the police force in Havana is actually brought from the countryside, so that they are, more inclined to be skeptical and to have a sort of like adversarial relationship with the people in Havana. And I think that's a big part of this. And, there's so many factors. There's no doubt that part of it is a function of medical infrastructure, but I'm not convinced that the doctors who live there, if somebody had a doctor, wouldn't have this a similar sort of like skepticism.
I know an anti-vax doctor who lives in the rural area, and that's what's driving the same. I think some of the vaccine hesitancy from the people I spoke to about earlier.
Don't worry, Dr. Oz will just make that all the more common.
There you go. All right.
When did you go to Cuba, Sam?
2002.
Awesome.
With an OFAC license. So take it easy, everybody. Let's see.
DHS is on you.
Okay. Final IM of the day, as it were. DJ Cold Case. In the face of total server collapse, peak Poggers and peak Comcast dollars, would hashtag Majority Report TikTok bring back Survival Sam when we need him the most? That is a throwback. People can find that. Just heart that. Matt, Bradley, Emma, Nomi, great job today. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get